On a crisp March evening in 1976, the unthinkable happened in a quiet Bethesda neighborhood. A respected State Department employee, William Bradford Bishop Jr., allegedly bludgeoned his entire family to death with a sledgehammer. The victims, his wife, mother, and 3 young sons. Born in 1936, Bishop seemed the epitome of success. Yale-educated and fluent in multiple languages, he'd carved out a promising career in foreign service. But beneath the polished exterior lurked a troubled man, grappling with depression and career frustrations. March 1st, 1976 would prove to be the day everything changed. Bishop learned he had been passed over for a promotion he desperately wanted. Colleagues later reported he seemed upset, leaving work early, complaining of feeling ill. What happened next has been pieced together by investigators over years of painstaking work. Instead of heading straight home, Bishop made 2 unusual stops. First, he went to a Sears store in Bethesda, purchasing a small sledgehammer and a gas can. Then, at a second store, he bought a shovel and a pitchfork. These innocuous items would soon become the tools of unthinkable violence. Investigators believe that when Bishop arrived home that evening, he systematically murdered his entire family while they were sleeping. First his wife, then his mother, and finally his 3 young sons. William III, 14, Brenton, 10, and Jeffrey, 5. The murder weapon, the very sledgehammer he had purchased hours earlier. The brutality of the crime was shocking. Each victim had been bludgeoned multiple times, likely as they slept. The level of violence suggested a frenzied attack, a complete loss of control. But what happened next showed a chilling level of calculation. Bishop loaded the bodies of his family into their station wagon. He then embarked on a 6-hour drive south, eventually reaching a densely wooded area near Columbia, North Carolina. There, in the cold pre-dawn hours of March 2nd, Bishop dug a shallow grave. He placed the bodies of his loved ones inside, dousing them with gasoline, and set them ablaze. A forest ranger discovered the still smoldering pit later that day, but at that point, the victims were unidentifiable. Also found was a gas can, a pitchfork, and a shovel. For an entire week, no one knew the Bishop family was missing. Neighbors in Bethesda noticed the absence of the usually active family, but assumed they had gone on vacation. It wasn't until March 8th that concern began to grow. A neighbor, worried by the accumulating newspapers and mail, contacted the police. When officers entered the Bishop home, they were confronted with a horrifying scene. Blood splattered the walls and floors, clear evidence of a violent struggle. But where was the family? As police began their investigation, they made a crucial discovery. Bishop's abandoned car was found at a campground in Great Smoky Mountains National Park in Tennessee. Inside were maps, hiking boots, and a bloody blanket. It appeared Bishop might have fled into the wilderness. Meanwhile, dental records confirmed the grim truth about the burned bodies found in North Carolina. They were indeed the remains of Annette Bishop, her 3 sons, and Bishop's mother. As the full extent of the crime became clear, a massive manhunt was launched. Bishop's photo was plastered across newspapers and television screens nationwide. He was described as 6 foot 1 inches tall, 180 pounds, with brown hair and eyes. Notably, he had a distinctive mole on his left cheek, a feature that would play a role in several alleged sightings over the years. But despite the intense search, Bishop seemed to have vanished into thin air. His training in counterintelligence and his familiarity with foreign cultures made him uniquely equipped to disappear. As days turned into weeks and weeks to months, the trail grew cold. Over the years, tantalizing leads would surface, only to fizzle out. In 1978, a woman in Stockholm, Sweden, reported seeing Bishop in a public park. She claimed to have worked with him previously and was certain of the identification. When she called out his name, the man fled. A year later, in 1979, one of Bishop's former colleagues thought he spotted him in a restroom in Sorrento, Italy. Again, when addressed by name, the man quickly left the scene. Perhaps the most intriguing sighting came in 1994. A former neighbor of the Bishops was on vacation in Basel, Switzerland. She reported seeing a man she was convinced was William Bradford Bishop at the local train station. Despite her certainty, no concrete evidence was found to support the claim. These sightings, while never confirmed, painted a picture of a man possibly living a nomadic existence in Europe. Bishop's language skills and familiarity with European culture would have made this a plausible scenario. As the case dragged on, investigators and profilers attempted to understand what could have driven Bishop to commit such a horrific act. Those who knew him described a complex personality, intelligent and ambitious. Bishop was also prone to violent outbursts of temper. He struggled with insomnia and depression, for which he was taking medication. Some theorized that the missed promotion was the final straw for a man already teetering on the edge. Others pointed to potential financial troubles or marital discord. Bishop's wife, Annette, had recently started attending college classes, a move that some suggested may have caused tension in the marriage. But these theories, while plausible, failed to fully explain the extreme nature of Bishop's actions. How could a man, by all accounts a loving father, bring himself to murder his own children? It's a question that has haunted investigators and the public alike for decades. In 2014, nearly 40 years after the murders, the FBI made a significant move. They added William Bradford Bishop Jr. to their 10 most wanted fugitives list. This decision breathed new life into the investigation and brought the case back into the national spotlight. As part of this renewed effort, the FBI released age-progressed images of Bishop, showing what he might look like as an older man. These images depicted a balding, bearded individual, a far cry from the clean-cut diplomat of 1976. The hope was that someone, somewhere, might recognize this new version of Bishop. The FBI also emphasized certain aspects of Bishop's personality and interests that might help identify him. He was known to be an avid outdoorsman, enjoying activities like camping, hiking, and riding motorcycles. He was also a dog lover, always having a family pet. Investigators speculated he might be working as a teacher or in international business, utilizing his language skills and education. Despite these efforts, Bishop remained elusive. Some began to speculate that he might have died years ago, perhaps by suicide in the immediate aftermath of the murders, or living anonymously until passing away from natural causes. However, in 2021, a startling development brought new hope to the investigation. A woman who had been adopted as an infant took a DNA test, curious about her biological roots. To her shock, the results indicated that her biological father was none other than William Bradford Bishop Jr. The FBI confirmed the validity of this claim. It turned out that before his marriage to Annette, Bishop had fathered a child with another woman. This daughter, now in her 50s, had been given up for adoption and had no knowledge of her biological father's identity or his infamous history. The discovery was significant for several reasons. First, it provided investigators with a new avenue for gathering information about Bishop. While the daughter had never known her father, her very existence offered new insights into his life before the murders. Secondly, it raised the possibility that Bishop might have other unknown children. If he had started a new family while in hiding, these individuals could potentially hold the key to finally locating him. The revelation also forced a reevaluation of Bishop's character and motivations. Here was a man who had given up a child for adoption in his youth, only to later have 3 sons who he allegedly murdered. The psychological implications were staggering. As the search for Bishop continues, several factors have made his capture particularly challenging. First, Bishop had nearly a week's head start before anyone realized his family was missing. This gave him ample time to flee, possibly even leaving the country. Then, as a State Department employee, Bishop had a diplomatic passport. This could have facilitated international travel, especially in the immediate aftermath of the crimes. Not only that, but fluent in multiple languages, Bishop could easily blend in various countries, and his background in Army counterintelligence provided Bishop with skills in evading detection. Bishop's love of camping and outdoor activities can also suggest he could survive in wilderness areas for extended periods. Over the years, Bishop's appearance would have naturally changed. He might have altered it further by growing a beard, shaving his head, or using other disguises. As decades have passed, memories fade. People who might have encountered Bishop may not connect an elderly man with a decades-old crime. As time passes, the likelihood of finding Bishop alive diminishes. If still living, he would now be in his late 80s. The man in the FBI's Age Progress images, a balding, bearded senior citizen, could be anywhere in the world, or may have passed away years ago without anyone realizing his true identity. Yet the search continues. The FBI maintains that the case will remain open until Bishop is found, or conclusive evidence of his death is discovered. They continue to follow up on tips and leads, no matter how unlikely they may seem. As we look back on this case, nearly half a century after the crimes were committed, we're left with more questions than answers. What drove William Bradford Bishop Jr. to allegedly murder his family? How has he managed to evade capture for so long? Is he still alive, living under an assumed identity? Or did he die years ago, taking the truth of that terrible night to his grave? These are questions that may never be fully answered, but the search for William Bradford Bishop continues. Perhaps someday, a chance encounter, a slip-up, or a breakthrough in forensic technology will finally bring this tragic story to a close. Until then, the case remains open, a haunting reminder of a night in 1976 when a seemingly perfect family was shattered and a man became one of America's most elusive fugitives.